Welcome to HealthCast, the heartbeat of health IT. We're your hosts, Sarah Seibert
and Catherine McPhail.
A few months ago, the Office of the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology launched the USCDI Plus initiative to support the identification and establishment of domain or program-specific datasets that will operate as extensions to the existing United States Core Data for Interoperability, or USCDI. In late August, ONC and the Health Resources and Services Administration announced a new USCDI Plus collaboration to support HRSA's uniform data system reporting through the UDS Modernization Initiative.
Under the collaboration, the agencies are aligning the UDS with interoperability standards and transitioning to patient-level reporting requirements with USCDI and other quality reporting efforts. HRSA and ONC are also establishing a strategic direction aligned with ONC's Cures Act final rule for HL7 FHIR-based exchange to better support the needs of health centers across the country. The initiative will help advance health equity and drive data-driven decision-making by streamlining operations and making health systems interoperable.
On today's episode, we're joined by Ryan Argentieri, Deputy Director of the Office of Technology at ONC, and Alex Ripapatana, Director of the Division of Data and Evaluation at HRSA, who will dive into the details of this new initiative, discuss some of the challenges that led them to collaborate, and forecast where they'll head in the future. To kick off the episode, could you explain the pillars of USCDI Plus and discuss how the initiative will advance the use of interoperable datasets and help federal agencies meet programmatic requirements?
Hi, sure. Thanks for having us, Sarah. This is Ryan. I'll kick it off and then we'll get going from there. But if you're not familiar with ONC and the work that we do, we're given authorization and statutory and regulatory authority we've been around for 18 years, but in 2009, really we were charged through the HITECH Act to begin a certification program of electronic health records that then led to the 21st Century Cures Act, which built upon that certification program and added requirements for interoperability, one of which was USCDI. So USCDI stands for US Core Data for Interoperability, and that is designed to be a baseline or floor from which those certified health IT vendors and developers must make certain data elements available for exchange on their platforms. What we have done in recent years, so we started this alongside some other attestation requirements, or another way to look at it, if for those who are not, deeply steeped in health IT regulation and technical requirements, is what are the technical functionality and features that must be required for any customer, whatever type of provider or organization that's using the product must be required. So we have made certain, let's say, benchmarks and goals that have now coming up on, I think in about 2 more weeks-ish, those developers have said through our certification program, attestation and conformance requirements that they must make, that they're saying makes available for everyone. So USCDI Plus is an additional refinement wherein we are working with our federal partners to go further and take it a step further and make sure that that same baseline and floor and foundation exists for data quality efforts and data exchange efforts. For example, the UDS Plus Modernization Program, to take and leverage our rules for their benefit, and to make sure that the end users and downstream users understand not only what information is needed at a more granular level, but how best to capture that information at the point of care, and further to reduce technical burden for the providers who then need to use that information to fulfill certain requirements, whether it's from HRSA or other agencies.
So ONC began its USCDI Plus efforts with CMS and CDC. I'm wondering if you could tell us what some of the lessons learned were from those agencies and how those lessons may inform your work with HRSA.
Sure. Thank you. So USCDI Plus is a service that we started, as you said, with CMS and CDC to focus on building out that same foundational data set to solve certain problems that are pervasive across both the public health community and also the quality universe, which is not just the federal partners, but those downstream data owners and users. And the goal really was and is to establish and advance the use of interoperable data sets that would extend beyond that core USCDI in order to make sure that the agency can have a more efficient and effective operation for any kind of data needs that they would like to see their recipients or their partners meet. So in the case of HRSA, we know, and we've had now, really great working relationship with HRSA, and discovered that with their, and as part of their UDS plus modernization effort, with which Alec will get into a bit later, that there's a lot of overlap between the CMS measures that are required of health centers and with the work that we've been doing with USCDI Plus for Quality. So we took a step back and said, how can we make this model work for HRSA's needs? And how can we even go farther to make sure that the core infrastructure that is set up to exchange information electronically is done so in a way that we aren't introducing, all this additional burden that ultimately we're trying to, make things easier for users and providers without them having to then go back in and do all of this tremendous cleanup effort, which is time consuming and gets them away from the work that's most important for them to do. And that builds on what we know works really well in other industries. It's called Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources, or FHIR. And we know that those standards work. They help keep information very secure. They help make information move quickly once the foundations are set. And we are hoping and planning that by doing this work in conjunction and alongside our efforts with CMS on the quality side, that everyone can kind of move along and modernize together, and that we can all go farther that way.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I know that building standardization can help reduce some of those backlogs or time-consuming processes that you mentioned. So what are some of the specific technologies you'll look to leverage to improve reporting and content review?
So I'll start, and then Alec can jump in, but the main component and the main technology that we will be using are those FAST or FHIR resources that they do require some a little bit of education, because not everyone, again, not all of the end users are familiar with how to manage the movement of data that way. But they once people kind of understand that is a modular approach to collecting information, that it really does and can move faster through what's called a FHIR server. And that would interface with the use of cloud and, again, just other more modern approaches to both the management of health information, specifically at the level of the patient health record, but also then when you take that and aggregate and do more of a bundling of those resources and information to make sure that the information is de-identified, that then you can capture it and use it to make better decisions, ultimately to benefit the patients that HRSA and others across HHS, but especially in the case of HRSA, are looking to do. So Alec, why don't I let you finish out that response?
Sure, thank you. And thank you so much for hosting us and giving us a venue to share this exciting collaboration and work. I will say that nearly 99% of health centers now report having an electronic health record system installed and in use at all sites and for all providers. There have been market advances in health information technology that help connect and coordinate care teams to better meet the needs of patients with multifaceted and complex health conditions like those that are being cared for at HRSA health centers. Now that a majority of health centers use EHR systems, we have an incredible opportunity to leverage data interoperability standards that safely support data sharing in robust ways and across diverse care settings. This initiative will leverage FHIR technology to automate and reduce reporting burden, improve the fidelity and integrity of data, and enable more robust analyses to improve equitable access to high-quality, cost-effective care for our patients.
Did you say 99% now have EHR records?
Yeah, 99% of our health centers have an EHR system stood up, which is important, but it's in use at all of their delivery sites and across all of their providers. So that's an important sort of qualification.
Absolutely. It's really interesting to see, the evolution of that program and also all the new opportunities it can bring about for data. That's great to hear. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how ONC and HRSA are working together to align with the UDS with interoperability standards and transition to patient-level reporting requirements.
So ONC and HRSA are collaborating to provide expertise, insight, and guidance on what it will take to establish a USCDI plus data set that supports UDS reporting and to identify other data quality and warehousing needs across HRSA. Stakeholder input is vital to HRSA, and we'll also be working with the UDS Test Cooperative, or UTC, to ensure stakeholder feedback. Just a little bit of background on the UTC. It consists of a voluntary group of representatives from health centers, primary care associations, health center control networks, and health information technology vendors that help test and refine UDS reporting innovations. The UTC also helps HRSA better understand how changes may affect health centers. Certainly, ONC brings expertise in interoperability standards to ensure HRSA data aligns with other federal agencies. ONC support will aid testing efforts by designing and assisting with the deployment of HRSA's FHIR infrastructure and incorporating feedback from the UTC as well as other health center program stakeholders. This modernized infrastructure will ultimately facilitate and reduce UDS reporting burden for health centers by harmonizing with digital quality measure reporting efforts, as well as aligning with ONC certification requirements for health IT. I want to be sure to add that on top of all of the necessary technological aspects of this collaboration and work is the aligned agenda to advance health equity. This work will help better position our health centers to conduct business in a very fast-paced and evolving primary care environment in which advancing HIT acts as a catalyst. Many of our health centers run on narrow operating margins and may not be able to absorb the cost of making data and infrastructure updates being adopted across the primary care landscape. This joint venture brings the best minds to the table with intellectual, technological, and resource assets that equal the playing field for health centers. And every bit as important is the access to data that HRSA will then have to better administer the health center program and better serve its patients. We'll be able to do things like patient segment our data, risk stratify care access and use. All of these things will yield important information to base programmatic decision making.
Yeah, and I'll just add that this project represents an approach that we're hoping and we're seeing so far is taking off elsewhere within the department at HHS, and hopefully this trend will continue, but we are coming together and working through potential challenges and obstacles. And like Alex said, getting, a real baseline understanding of what the health center needs and what they might not always get, or in the past haven't always had a chance to surface as part of the interoperability regulatory environment. So said differently, we're starting from the beginning and working to build out an end-to-end solution with the best of the technical solutions and some of those the brightest minds, in the industry and in the sector, and then making sure that wherever there might be a misunderstanding of what the requirement is meant to do and what is possible, using a standard FHIR API, which is not always, layman's terms, but hopefully, and with this project and the visibility and the work that we're doing together, those concepts that in the past have been somewhat difficult for people to understand, we're helping to bring awareness and show that this isn't as hard as you might have thought. And really, we can break it down in such a way that you see and the health centers themselves see that this is doable, this is feasible, and this is really going to make their lives easier.
Yeah, that's really exciting to watch. And I know that ONC released new data classes for USCDI over the summer. And as Alec mentioned, that effort to increase health equity. So this is all great to see. And earlier in the episode, Ryan, you mentioned some of the fire standards that will be your focus for this effort. Could you explain how your new strategy is aligned with ONC's Cures Act final rule for HL7 fire-based exchange, which aims to better support the needs of health centers across the country?
Sure thing. So we have a number of different criteria in our certification and testing program, one of which is referred to as the G suite. We have an F suite that's focused on public health, and the G suite is really focused on how to use and what are the requirements for leveraging information through an application programming interface or API. And one of the most important tenets and the components of the fire standards that we are leveraging for and scaling for this program is that use of the ability to deploy what we refer to as a standard fire API. So that deadline is December 31st of this calendar year. And again, this pushing to use that functionality that's made available to exchange the information that is an extension of USCDI. So health centers themselves, while we've added data classes and data elements that are nested within them that support social determinants of health, data capture, and other areas that we've identified within ONC, and again, as part of HHS with our partners, to be most important to help reduce health equity and health disparities that many of these communities that receive services and patients that go to get all of their needs met. So whether it's primary care physician or some other type of human services that we can use and leverage our USCDI Plus program, and some of the findings that we've been having, for example, in the public health domain, we have a special exercise in a subdomain that's focused on risk drivers and risk behavior, so that we can better understand and start to capture some of that information. And HRSA was really ahead of everyone. So just to give them a shout out. So Alec, his team, Dr. Sumaner and her team, the rest of the BIPIC team at HRSA, and a number of others across the organization, they really were in many ways a couple steps ahead of the rest of us, because they saw that those same data elements were critical for them to achieve the goals and push the envelope. And that's part of what's represented in UDS Plus. And we're now able to bring those learnings and that information forward to make sure that the standards that we deploy are fulfilling the intended needs and purpose, and that we make sure that those health centers understand that this is functionality that they should be provided access to without any special extra burden or effort. Burden is not quite the most precise word to use, but really without special effort or unrealistic financial investment. And that said, we know that there are costs to deploying new technical solutions, but that's, again, all part of our work in that. And we'll see and hopefully come back to tell you more about how things are progressing in the coming months.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's clear that health equity is sort of the major issue in the federal health space right now, and data is the critical driver of that. So that's really fantastic to hear more about this. Alec, I'm wondering if you could tell us what some of the challenges were that HRSA faced before launching the UDS Modernization Initiative, and how USCDI Plus might help overcome some of those barriers.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, HRSA has spent the last few years strategically aligning its measures with federal partners, such as clinical quality measures with CMS's ECQMs, or electronic specified clinical quality measures. However, the granularity of the UDS was limited and unable to provide any sort of specificity on how patient demographics may contribute to health outcomes of patients served by HRSA health centers. USCDI Plus will help HRSA better evaluate how to drive quality improvement for vulnerable and historically underserved population groups. Modernizing the UDS also represents an opportunity to reduce reporting burdens so health centers can better focus on delivering care to their patients. This is particularly important since organizations like health centers participate in multiple federal programs with varying or various reporting requirements. So we're at a point in time where we can begin to leverage USCDI and other interoperability standards to map constructs, very important constructs like those clinical quality measures that I mentioned earlier, as well as things like social determinants of health for standardized data across different federal healthcare program reporting systems.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Earlier, we touched on UTC or UDS testing cooperative. How will HRSA leverage UTC to better refine UDS reporting innovations?
Yeah, and great question. The UTC is so important. We see having a voice from our UDS stakeholders is central to success of any modernization effort. HRSA works closely with UTC to pilot innovations before scaling them to assess their implementation feasibility. Engage a range of UDS stakeholders to ensure that input on UDS modernization efforts are being considered from diverse perspectives. For example, health centers representing different geographic locations of different sizes, different patient panels that are supported by different EHR systems and vendors. Ensure that UDS stakeholders are actively involved in identifying and testing UDS innovations. So yeah, UTC is critical to any of the UDS modernization efforts, including UDS Plus.
The press release said that moving forward, ONC and HRSA will collaborate to establish a USCDI dataset that supports UDS reporting and identifies the other data quality and warehousing needs across HRSA. I'm wondering if you all could tell us what goes into that process and what the next steps will be.
Sure. So currently we are in the needs assessment phase and just doing some of the information gathering at the very granular data element level to do things like mapping data needs to existing UDS reporting requirements as well as UDS plus reporting requirements. We're also, as Alex said, working very closely alongside members of the UTC to get their feedback and input about both the existing capabilities and the transition to the desired future state. So we call that at ONC the discovery phase. So that is we are still technically in the discovery phase, and then we'll move into implementation in a few months after we go through a pretty stringent review with HRSA of what's called a user-centered design approach, or other people, and outside of government might refer to this as just a normal business process, passport review process or effort. And that is just to make sure that we're not missing anything from either the technical integration perspective or the actual, understanding at the user level of how they are supposed to meet these requirements and work together with HRSA and the HRSA team to meet the needs that they have and will have in the future state of the reporting process. And from a data set perspective, we have platforms currently where we are able to capture information and submissions from within the federal space. So for example, we in the public health example, we have a number of internal partners and then a number of, as I mentioned earlier on, the external stakeholders who are very much involved and need to inform the process. So they need to be able to have time. In the case of HRSA, the health centers will have the opportunity, and some of this will be done in the course of the readiness assessment and needs assessment, to help us to determine what are the most important data elements to support the reporting requirements, and then we'll iterate on and continue to get feedback.
Yeah, so that was our last question, but I think that this provided a lot of awesome insight into this new project, and we definitely would love to have you back for an update in maybe early 2023 to see what progress you've made. But thank you both for joining the episode today and for letting us pick your brain.
Yeah, no problem. Alec, is there anything else we missed that we should?
Not at all. Again, just thank you. I think this coordinated effort is evolving and unfolding, and I think we would embrace the opportunity to provide updates later. It's very exciting.
Thank you for tuning in. And if you enjoyed the show, please follow us on your favorite podcast app or listen to more at govciomedia.com. Until next time.
HealthCast, along with GovCast and CyberCast, is a production of GovCIO Media and Research. For more podcasts and to check out the other shows, head to govciomedia.com. Watch out for new episodes released every Tuesday and Wednesday across our shows. You can follow all of them in your favorite podcast platform, and if you like what you heard, make sure to let us know by leaving a review. And if you have any topics you think we should look into, contact us at newsletter@gcio.com.